So, Cush, the man, the myth, the
Yeah.
fucking legend.
Well,
How long have you been playing guitar for, mate?
started playing when I was 13. Yeah, I grew up in Brisbane, and I was working at a BP petrol station. I was the Bowser boy, and every second Sunday I would go in and put petrol into people's cars, and I get paid $4 an hour. And I discovered rock and roll, through Jimmy Barnes and Cold Chisel and Johnny Diesel and the Injectors and those sort of the pub rock scene. And out of my $4 an hour, I think my first guitar was a LaGrange, $120 acoustic guitar from the local guitar shop, and it was my pride and joy. And I went there and I paid for it with my own money when I was 13. And Mum said, "Is this what you want?" And I went, "Yes." And that's when I started playing guitar and learned a few chords, got help from a few mates. And, my first song was probably something like Every Rose Has Its Thorn or anything with one or two chords. And that was it for me. Yeah, that was it. I was hooked. I've been playing music, other instruments, clarinet, saxophone at school before then. But rock and roll never kicked in until I think I must have been watching MTV or Rage or whatever it was on, Saturday morning, video network, and just started from there. So yeah.
And was it always the plan to become a professional musician, or was there a backup plan?
No, the dream. There was no plan. It was the dream. I was always drawn towards wanting to play music to entertain. Obviously, I didn't have a concept of playing live. I was too young. I'd obviously never been to a pub gig and things like that. But certainly, I remember at a young age when being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a rock star. I want to go and do that sort of stuff. It just seemed good. I don't know what the attraction was either. There's also a skill involved in playing music, and I wanted to have that and to run with that. So not so much a plan, but definitely a dream. For example, I used to jump around playing air guitar in my bedroom, jump on my bed, and I'd be playing air guitar. I don't know how, but I just wanted, and I was playing the Bow River or Cold Chisel Hit or whatever song was actually coming through the radio, because that's all I had. I had a few cassettes. I didn't have, CDs weren't a thing then. Just playing air guitar, and I was like, this will work. I was no good at sport. I was no good at a lot of things, but I certainly wanted to give this a go. So and I think if it didn't happen one way, maybe it would have happened another. It was always the dream. It still is.
And what age were you when that dream really took hold?
To be honest, it's ebbed and flowed over the years. Some years I've taken a step back. I did the backpacking thing, traveled through the US, South America, and I worked on the cruise ships. So a lot of people, I guess, a lot of friends at certain times didn't know that I was into music, and then all of a sudden a guitar would come up, or I never even had a guitar wherever I may have been, it was spasmodic. But as for when the dream really kicked in, actually, to be honest, not until I was into my mid to late mid-20s did I end up in a band, a proper band, a working band for the first time. And it happened by accident. It was in Argentina. And this dream became a reality, literally, in one night at a bar. I got up with a band and they said, "Hey, you should sing. Do you want to join us?" And not that particular band got rid of their singer. That band continued, but those musicians joined up with me, and we formed another band called the Barflies in Argentina, and it went from there. So it was more like a wave of progress, I guess. Yeah.
So just to take it back, so you graduate from school.
Yep.
Did you go to university?
No. I worked in hospitality for a couple of years, and then I took off overseas when I was 20. Yeah.
And so, in your early 20s, being an artist, I know how nebulous it is because you're kind of like, you've got all of that gung-ho, you want to take risks, you've got this dream, but it's so difficult because it's hard when you don't have the contacts, you don't have the experience, you don't have the catalog, you don't have the cash, you got fucking nothing.
No
right?
idea.
Got no idea.
Just a bunch of vinyls.
Yeah.
And a guitar. Yeah. One guitar. Yeah.
And I still definitely have no idea myself. Like I'm still working all of that out.
Yeah.
I've got some idea, I guess.
Yeah.
But in those early years, how did you keep contact with your craft while working in hospitality? How did you get that working?
Working in bars with live music. That was sort of one hand, wash the other. Really, I worked in a bunch of bars just through good luck and coincidence, and there would always be a band on Friday nights, of course, or Saturday nights. So I'd go in there and hang out with the musicians, and even often, ask to get up and play or do the sound check with them. So that's how that happened. It was a strange progress. It certainly wasn't constant because when I finished school, I wasn't in music. I might have gone to the odd party at a pub in Brisbane or something and got up with a band, but I certainly wasn't looking for musicians or into this musician mindset of this is what I want to do. It was more something that I kind of already did or had on the side, but I was already going down the hospitality route. So I thought I was going to be this hospitality bar manager kind of guy for the rest of my life. But with being involved with live music, that's where it took off, and eventually one took over the other until I wasn't working in bars anymore every night. I was playing in them every Saturday night.
Right.
And that's how that worked. And then while I was living in Argentina, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to New York. I got myself to New York, $400 in the back pocket, a Fender Stratocaster slung over the shoulder, and a bucket load of hope. And I ended up getting gigs in New York, and that was a real lot of fun. Certainly a great time for growth as a musician. I think that's where it kicked off. So we're talking 2001 here, and then
just to touch on that.
Yeah.
How do you feel like those years have influenced you now? Like the time that you spent in New York, the times you've gone into those bars, being a Glassy or a Bussy and all that.
Yeah.
How has that influenced you now as a musician?
I love a good bar. Which Saturday night ball breaking band member doesn't love a good bar? Oh, that's where it's at. But definitely formed. Still is very much part of it. The bars in New York, they have a different bar psyche, I guess, for want of a better.
Bus.
Yeah, a bar of a better term, because it's different. Bars are different there than what they are here. Here we've got
true?
pubs. It's just different in the US. Whether it be tipping culture, the music, the live venues are different. And of course, New York is New York. It's a different kettle of fish. But definitely love playing the pub circuit here. I think that's where growing up and seeing and hearing about these bands from the 80s here in Australia doing the pub circuit, the famous pub circuit, that was always good. And then going to New York, playing in a few bars, seeing bands in New York do that sort of stuff, and Argentina, Rio de Janeiro, all these places where I got to travel and live for different reasons other than music. But then, coming back to Australia now 7 years ago and making it real and going, wow, now I'm on the circuit, doing different things, albeit a small circuit or smaller circuit. I'd love to be playing Hordern Pavilion or, festival halls and things like that. But pubs is really where it's at. It's where everyone cuts their teeth and you make it or break it. And the crowd determines that.
Yeah. So you're fresh out of school. You're working at a pub, music venue.
Yeah.
And you're taking a look at these musicians actually doing it.
Yep.
What's in your mind back then when you're looking at them perform?
Can I get up and sing? Absolutely. The
Really?
Royal Exchange Hotel at Toowong in Brisbane. That's that's where I'd finished school. I went to school in that suburb.
Yep.
That was the local pub. You know, you turn 18, you have your 18th there. Everyone's there. Uni student night on Thursday nights.
Yep.
And there was always a band. And, I always seemed to ended up somehow talking to the band and getting up and playing guitar and having a sing.
And which bands came through as well?
Well, I don't remember their names. There was one particular guy called Steve, and he was forget his last name, but he was the acoustic guy in the corner of the bar, just playing hits all night. And lo and behold, that's where I've spent certainly spent a large part of my musical nights, in gigs, being that guy, just like him, just getting up and playing the same old standards, playing the request, whether it be Creedence or, Chisel, Janis Joplin, or making it up on the spot. Happy birthday to someone up the back who's having a birthday. So, so the influences were definitely there from straight out of school, and then into the traveling backpacking years, until I was working behind a bar with a live band. And they said, in fact, I think that one particular night, where it all started was I was working in a bar called The Spot in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and the singer was late for the sound check. And I said, I'll help out. I'll give you a chop out on the sound check. They said, yeah, no worries, because none of the band members there sung in English, and obviously speaking English, I got up. Jumped up with them, and they were like, wow, let's do something together. And that became the Barflies. That band became the Barflies. And bands always morph. Bands have this shocking sort of symptom of morphing from one band into the other. It's who you know, it's how it is. Someone always quits, someone always joins the band. And give it a few months and you've got a different band with a different guys, but it could even be the same band or something completely different. So that's where that sort of started. But yeah, definitely, it's just sort of like this path that is, whether it's been more intense or less intense, but it's always been there, and it's driven me along to having a band to this day, and still loving out. And I'll play. I just love to play. It's just in me. I think in any artist, you're just driven towards what you feel inside and you want to do. Whether it be playing in a park to either nobody or to a packed house, it's just it's what you just want to do. Yeah.
What came first, Buenos Aires or New York?
Before and after. So New York was, let's say, in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go over to Argentina?
I was lucky enough to work on the cruise ships for 2 years.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So the cruise ship opportunity came up. Like, how did you get involved in that? What was the gig there?
I was a croupier in the casino, so I dealt blackjack, roulette, nothing to do with live music. But again, on a cruise ship, there's a couple of different bands. There's the rock band, there's the theatre band, the stage band. There's the piano bar, where it was just, I remember, so I also play piano, so I would go in and on my breaks, I used to go in on my breaks and get up on stage and play, and then jump back down and go and deal blackjack, run back into the casino and go and play. So like I wasn't a professional level player or anything like that. Well, at least I didn't think I was, but it was just one big family. So the cruise ships happened, and musically speaking, I wouldn't say I was, I just had one guitar. I think it was borrowed from some guy that might have even gone. I remember I had a Stratocaster of some sort. I love Fender Stratocasters, and type of guitar that's synonymous with blues and rock. And I started playing with these bands and getting up. Got a bit more confidence, because it's all about confidence. It's all very well to want and do it, to be able to play or to want to play, but sometimes getting up there takes a little bit more. But I don't know, maybe I'd have a shot of whiskey or something on my break as well, and get on up and play with these guys, and then jump back down, go and play the night out. And the casino would close at midnight, but some of these bands were still playing on into 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'd get back up with them, and And how Argentina came about was I just simply met a whole bunch of folks from Argentina and all different parts of South America, and I thought, well, that's next. So I, after 2 years on the cruise ships, I hit Argentina at the end of 1997, and then started working in bars again, and then the cycle repeats. Get to meet musicians, get up with the bands, get my own band, and in fact, to the point where I was manager of a bar where I was playing on Friday night once a month or something. So I had my own band, but I was also behind the bar before and after the gig. I had to get off from the stage and then go and finish my shift behind the bar and clean the bar all night.
Right.
But so there was basically it was just a life of nightlife, and a lot of fun. Every night was a Saturday night. Every night was a Saturday night for sure.
What was your favorite musical memory on the cruise ships?
Playing the piano bar, actually. It was a nice, I guess, like a grand piano.
Yeah.
But it was round and it was the bar. So people would be sitting at the piano, about, let's say, a 3 meter diameter piano, if you can picture that. And I would go down there on my break or on my night off and sit and play a set on keyboard, and the guy who was actually playing there would let me get up. That was a lot of fun. It wasn't guitar. It was just me on keyboards playing to a dozen people that are literally sitting within just a couple of meters of you. And Billy Joel kind of Piano Man sort of stuff. And so that romantic idea of playing live and playing what the audience calls out. I don't think I knew that many songs, but I knew enough to give me an hour. In fact, while I was still learning guitar well into my 20s, piano still was very much my dominant instrument.
Right.
It sort of happened that way. So that was definitely one. There was also the rock band, and I would get up and join them playing the guitar. But that was more sort of stock standard. But for me, what was really special was playing piano in an intimate. There wouldn't have been any more than 15, 20 people in the room, and to play piano and to play piano ballads. I didn't know if I was any good, but it was fun. It was a great memory. Yeah, it is a great memory. Yeah.
And after the cruise ships, what happened next? Where did you go next?
Argentina. Yeah, straight from the cruise ships down to Argentina.
What led you to that choice? Why did you decide to go to Argentina?
It just interests me, the people that I'd met previously, a new language. Economically, Argentina was doing very well then. It just seemed like the next thing. I had to throw a dart at the map, and it landed on Argentina.
So you rock up in Argentina.
Yeah.
What year is this?
1997. I think I rocked up in November, the week Michael Hutchence died.
Right.
Yeah, from InXS. So
I would have been 7 years old, and I still remember hearing that.
Yeah.
I only remember that because of the effect it had on my mum.
Wow. Yeah. Hutch was obviously, and still is, a musical legend and icon as far as, anywhere all around the world. So yeah, and somehow I ended up with an acoustic guitar. I don't know where that came from. I can't remember buying.
Make up a story.
Yeah, I found a guitar on the street, and I was a backpacker, so I was living in a backpackers hostel.
And what were you doing for money?
Working in bars.
Okay.
Go figure.
I want to ask a question about that. How much money do you reckon you had at that time?
I arrived in Argentina with $200.
How scary was that for you?
Pretty scary, but it wasn't a thought.
Okay.
It was like, I'll work it out. I'll get a job in a bar. And eventually I did. Long story short, I ended up going over the border to Uruguay and working back in the casino. They had a big brand new casino in Uruguay. So I lived I did the summer season, the equivalent of, let's say, Ibiza in Spain. And no Spanish, no money. I was staying at the Backpackers Hotel there, and I had a job interview to go in as a croupier and work as a dealer again for the casino in Uruguay. So I found employment. But again, I was always drawn towards the pub, and it was called, it still is there to this day, Moby Dick's Bar in Uruguay. And they had a band there 2 nights a week. So I'd go down there and once again, get on up. And the singer of, they were called the Midnight Movers. I remember they were a great soul band. The Midnight Movers, and the singer left, and they said, can you take over? And I did like half the summer season singing for this soul band. And soul music was probably my very first and main influence, getting into rock and roll and all like that, soul music, old Motown. I had a lot of Motown records when I was younger, and so I knew a lot of their songs, and I'd get up and sang with them. So I would be...
What songs, what bands, what musicians?
Oh, Otis Redding, James Brown, Aretha Franklin. Not that I sing like Aretha Franklin, but those sorts of songs, Rolling Stones, Sam and Dave, the Blues Brothers, all these big bands that still are, in the staple of any soul band of these days. Yeah.
Here's another question.
Yeah.
That's soul music from America, right?
Yep.
How is it playing American music as an Australian to an Argentine?
Yeah. Well, you can make up the words. You can make up the words because they don't care. But it's funny. Everyone's into James Brown. Everyone loves "I Feel Good." I feel good. You get that going, and the crowd's going to get up and dance. Of course, English. Everyone knows those big songs. But it was it was pretty funny. So I remember finishing work at the casino, getting on my little push bike, driving 3 or 4 kilometers to this bar, getting changed, having a beer, knocking back a shot of whiskey, and getting up on stage and playing with the Midnight Movers. I think I played with them for like 2 or 3 months.
Were they your first band ever?
That would have been pretty close to it. My very first band was in year 9 at school, and we were called The Times. So this is Brisbane. We were called The Times, and we did one gig, and it was at school assembly, and we played "Sweet Child of Mine," "Give It Away Now" by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and "Mustang Sally," Wilson Pickett from the Commitments sort of fame. So I would say that the Midnight Movers would have been by default my first band.
Who was in there?
Sorry?
Who was in the Midnight Movers? What do they consist of?
2 guitarists, a drummer, and a bass player. And because I could sing in English and obviously speak English, it was a free pass into the band, I think. I'd gotten up with them before, until it just eventually became a full time. But we had this big sit down, and it was like, "Do you think you can join the band?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do this." But that was that would have been, I would have been 20 years old by then. So I was 22. So first band in Uruguay.
And where did that confidence that you obviously being a solo musician, it's a very personal thing when you're first starting out, because it's kind of like you're developing your own style, you're developing your own repertoire, you're developing your own confidence and relationship to the music, but then playing in a band's a completely different environment, etc. So where did that confidence in saying yes come from?
Beer. Or just Saturday nights. I think it was just ingrained in me. It was just something that I always did. At school I was, maybe the class clown or something like that. Playing in front of a crowd never scared me, although still to this day I get nervous. So there's a fine line. It was something that I was driven to performing. Performing was something I was always driven to. Playing in public, I was never afraid of it, but that's not to say that I just get up and it's just easy. There's, to this day, every gig I get up and I'm still looking around the room going, shit, like who's there? How many people are there? Looking behind the curtain and going, oh my God, Mum's there, but the confidence comes with, the confidence came slowly also. It was a build-up, but I I think in essence it was always there. I was always the kid at, with a guitar in my hand at school, ready to play for a party. I know that song, working out songs and things like that. Yeah.
So you're up there with the Midnight Movers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is there any standout gig from that time?
Definitely.
What is it?
There was one particular gig at the bar Moby Dick's where we played every Saturday night.
Yeah.
And there was one particular table which for some reason had a hole in the middle. And I remember doing a handstand and putting my head... It was a coffee table. Like, think of a large coffee table, and I put my head in the hole in this cutout and I did a handstand. I remember that. So yeah, well, I don't know. It was just there, and I just put my head in and did a handstand and finished my... I can't do a handstand these days. Let me give you the hot tip. But I finished up and kept singing. It was a great bar. It was the most popular bar, if you like, of that beach town. It was a tourist town, kind of like a Byron Bay sort of a thing. And that was definitely an important gig. But often it was the case, like how it would work. What I do remember from those gigs, I was always working, in casino, and I guess I must have finished around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight, and straight on my bike, get changed out of my casino uniform, straight on my bike, down the highway on my bike, and jump off it, park it, have a beer, straight on stage. The band was already set. I just had a microphone there, and it was rock and roll. It was great. There was no fussing. I don't recall the members of the band or really sort of having much to do with them. I was just the guy, and we would just do it. But we're talking 2-hour gigs, 3-hour gigs every Saturday night. No rehearsals, just straight on up, and yep, let's do it.
How is that? Like, no rehearsals, so you're literally figuring out what it's like to play with these guys as you're up on stage. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's actually quite common. A lot of bands are just formed by getting up and jam. We were a set band. It wasn't just a jam. Like, we had songs, and I would be given a set list. I do remember, rehearsing songs and things like that at home, listening to songs, going through lyrics. But, this is 1990, summer of 97, 98. Internet was really only just sort of becoming a thing. I think I didn't even have email back then. So it was a time, it was the end of, or the beginning of internet as we know it today, maybe not even. But yeah, no rehearsals, no nothing, just get up and play. And I'm sure we played probably a few songs 2 or 3 times the night, but you just get up and make it up, and once the song starts, you just keep going.
Would you say that you've played with those people more than you even spoke to them or interacted with them socially?
No, never interacted with them socially. No,
so you
never.
Played more with them than you actually...
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
100%. No, don't remember. But it was... I remember the singer who left was called Juan, because I had a chat with him because he could speak English. But I don't think the other guys really did, it's an interesting question because I've never thought about that. But yeah, no, never knew the guys before, during, or after.
So, moral of the story is, if you're in Argentina and you want to be the lead singer of a band, speak English.
Yeah, that's right. And then things progressed from there. Then so after the summer, I went back to Argentina, got bar work, and then that's when more regular band work came in. It was sort of a blur there. So in 2001, I headed to New York. That was a solo thing. It was.
Why did you move over to New York?
I was very passionate about bartending.
Right.
I still had the passion of bartending, believe it or not. So there's all this music thing going on, but yeah, exactly. But my absolute passion was bartending, and I guess I watched the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise too many times, and I did go to New York explicitly just to bartend.
Right.
So I was there for a year. So during the attacks on September 11, I was there basically for the whole calendar year of 2001. Came back, and in 2002, it's a bit blurry now, but yeah, started to form, playing other bands. I forget what I was doing then. And in about 2006, 2007, which was when I was running this bar and I got up and helped the band playing during their sound check, and got up and played with them. And that was a band that we formed called the Barflies because we did know each other. I did know those guys in the band. They'd been playing in the bar for a while, and I'd never gotten up with them to sing at all. Until one night it sort of all happened, and then they said, "Hey, we should do this." And then the Barflies formed as a band, and that lasted for a year or two. Great band, still great mates with all of those guys. In fact, the guitarist Gaston Bray, who now lives in California, he played lead guitar on my single that I released last year, that you filmed the video clip. Ride Me. So still very much in contact with those guys. It's funny how it all comes back around. And those guys, we all still support each other, in whatever way we can online, obviously due to distance. But so I guess it wasn't really until 2007 until it really kicked in and music started to become even more important to me, or at least performing live with the band. And I had my band. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. So
you're in New York City.
Yep.
How old are you at this point? The first
25. 25. Yeah, I was 25.
So what's running through your mind there? Like, are you totally devoted to, just having a good time and also playing music as well? Or did you have any nagging feeling like, fuck, I've got to mature up and just get a full-time job and settle down and this, that? Like, what's going on in your head there?
Yeah, funny because New York, musically, it took a back seat, musically speaking.
How come?
I was working 5 nights a week behind the bar, and that's what paid money. I was, because obviously in the US they have the tipping culture. So working behind a bar became lucrative, actually. 5 nights a week, which is often unheard of in New York because it's so intense. The amount of work behind a bar, what you got to do, it's like working Saturday night 5 nights a week. It was recommended not to do it, but I did it because I just loved it. But I burnt out, eventually quit my job and left New York because I just had enough. I was burnt out of doing all these. So doing the music thing, I may have had a guitar. Obviously I had a guitar. I was doing the occasional gig around Little Italy and in Greenwich Village. I played a few bars there.
Oh yeah.
I remember doing one at the Elbow Room there for a while, which is a significant bar there. But also going out, probably more so than playing, was going out and seeing bands and being around musicians.
Who did you see?
Killing Heidi was one of them. Yeah, saw Killing Heidi there.
You could have seen them in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. They live up the road an hour. Yeah, could have seen. Yeah, exactly. Could have seen them anywhere. But yeah, Killing Heidi came to New York, and when Jesse and Ella were there, so.
You also saw Jamiroquai, right?
Yeah, saw Jamiroquai the night before September 11th, September the 10th.
Can you tell me about that? Because you told me the story and I thought it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was a stormy night, and I'd, due to a couple of guys that were in charge of the sound setup for, I forget that Michael Jackson was playing across the road at Madison Square Gardens.
And you saw Jamiroquai.
And Jamiroquai were playing across the road. And I got backstage entry to Jamiroquai, and I never got to see them. I never got to meet them, unfortunately, because they were musical heroes of mine. But so sort of hung out and got shown around backstage, and we were looking down from the top, from where the lights were. It was really cool, actually, and where the guy at the back was with the spotlight, we were hanging out with him, and it was. So we just got this VIP access to Jamiroquai. Walked out of there that night. The biggest storm I think I've ever been in this day hit New York that night. And yeah, it was just a major blow up. Got a cab home. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. And got a knock on the door at about 9 o'clock the next morning from my roommate saying, grab your video camera. We're under attack. The buildings are on fire. The Twin Towers are on fire. They've been hit. So both buildings were on fire. They'd both been hit by that stage. I grabbed my video camera and went up to the roof. There was no balcony. So it was only a low set building, maybe 4 or 5 stories high. And we went up to the roof and we watched September 11 unfold that morning, Tuesday morning.
So you filmed it?
I filmed the collapse of the second building.
Do you still have that footage?
No, I left it on my video camera in a taxi back in Argentina. So months later, I lost the video camera because I was stupid.
Yeah.
I thought I'd have it forever. And I left it in a taxi, so I lost the video camera and awesome footage, zoomed in footage of September 11. It would still to this day be quite significant. Yeah.
What was going through your head when you saw that tower collapse? Like,
I couldn't understand it. Like you couldn't fathom what was happening. It was something so surreal. I remember zooming in and filming those people waving from the levels above where the implosion or explosion had happened, the crash had happened. So I was zooming in on people waving, whatever they were waving, clothes and things, people jumping, debris flying out, and then eventually the building. I missed the first collapse of the tower, I think Tower 2 collapsed first. I missed that because I went back downstairs to grab my phone and call back home to Australia to say I was okay. So I made a quick phone call. That building collapsed, then ran back upstairs. And just as I got back up there, I turned the camera on again and filmed the complete collapse of the second tower, of the second collapse. And I was living with 4 or 5 roommates, flatmates at the time, in a studio in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, and shocking day. We still, even that night, we didn't understand what had happened. It was just terrible. Yeah. There was nothing to compare that to. So, what do? It was more than a bad day at the office.
If you think about the mood at that time, just in the aftermath of that, when you're living in New York, how was it, and what did you see in the music scene after a disaster like that? Like, what changed the live music scene for you?
Yeah, kind of similar to what we're going through now with the virus pandemic. I remember they shut down a lot of what they call the bridges and tunnels. You couldn't get into Manhattan, you couldn't get out. Right. It was a big lockdown there. Including the bar where I worked in Little Italy, that was also shut down. We didn't work for about a week and a half. So yeah, gigs were cancelled, and also nobody wanted to go out to these gigs. It wasn't.
Right.
There was no humour. Dave Letterman stopped. All of these shows pulled the pin for a week until things had somewhat become a bit more understood. And then, Jon Stewart, Dave Letterman, Jay Leno started to get back on the air and get some sort of normalcy going. But as for live music, it had changed. For weeks after the collapse, in the bar, I went back to work behind the bar, and the workers, what would you call them, the recovery workers, would come in covered in that dust that you may remember from the photos. They would be covered in just that concrete dust, and they would come into the bar and with a somber face, and it wasn't a party mood. But as musically speaking, I guess the show went on eventually. I wasn't privy to that sort of the music scene there in New York as much, but I guess bars got going again, and people had to keep ticking over the economy and wanted to get out, wanted to feel normal. And I think that's what we're going to go through here in after COVID. I think as soon as the bars here open up again, people are going to flock to it. There's going to be a lot of opportunity there for artists all around the world, certainly here in Australia.
So, in your time in New York, how would you say that you evolved as a musician? Because as an actor filmmaker myself, just because I'm not working doesn't necessarily mean I'm not changing as an artist.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
How do you feel like your time in New York came to? How do you think it evolved you as an artist?
Seeing how a lot of things were done properly. Not that they're not done properly elsewhere, but artists in New York, there's a lot of talent there, and if you're out on a Friday night and you pull into some bar and some guy's got a gig, chances are he's going to be bloody awesome. so I got to even buskers on the street. They're just freaks. You can make good money there, of course, and you get great exposure. I was younger then, and I wasn't gigging. I hadn't really hit. I still hadn't had my, a great run of bands and gigs at that stage. Even though I'd done the Uruguay thing, going back to the Midnight Movers, that was pretty much a flash in the pan. Really, it was one summer. Even though we did a lot of gigs, but it was more of a bit of a stuff around. It was my first time. But going to New York, I think I saw, the genesis of how maybe it all works a little bit. Just to start saying, maybe, I might be able to get up and do that. Or I've done that before. I'm okay. I can get up and have a sing. I can play 3 songs or 10 songs and get up and do that sort of thing. I also played in the bar where I was working, so I think I did a few Sunday sessions there, and that was a lot of fun. So it was a great experience. It was more for experience. Right at the beginning, even though I'd been playing guitar now for 11 years, and wanted the dream. I think the reality was just starting to sort of, the flame had just lit there a little bit. And I was
How old were you then?
25. So I was 25 in New York.
Yep.
Yeah. And when I got back to New York, when I left New York and went back to Argentina, because things had gotten crazy after September 11. So I think in November, I left New York, went back to Argentina, and started playing again. Went back to my old job back at the bar I used to work at, and then that's when I flicked the switch and thought I want to do that. So I still did the bartending thing, but then that tapered off, and certainly music started. That's when music started to take over in 2002.
Why did it take over?
Change of passion. I guess I'd done the bartender thing and hadn't done the musician thing, so I guess that's where that came in.
Not having done the musician thing, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, definitely. This is a path I wanted to go.
So you knew that from not having it in your life.
Yeah, there may not so much a void, but certainly, wow, I haven't really explored this yet.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into this music thing as much as I could. And then I started listening to more music and playing more guitar in my bedroom.
What were you playing?
Then starting getting into rock. Then starting to rock it out. So it had moved from soul. I remember I went through I can't play jazz, but I was listening to a lot of jazz. I've always loved jazz.
But like Charlie Parker?
Yeah, definitely. Especially Vince Jones, who's one of Australia's prominent jazz musicians. I was heavily into jazz, soul, and funk, and all that sort of stuff. But it yet hadn't sunk into me playing it on guitar. But then, I don't know, something happened. I end up in rock again, which was, going back to my Cold Chisel days and even playing AC/DC and things that, just every guitarist loves. You love to play AC/DC. So I was back in Argentina, back in Buenos Aires, working in a bar, and I got a rock band together, and that was the Barflies. That was that sort of first band, and
now on that,
yeah.
What made you at that point decide to get into a band?
Oh, I didn't decide. It fell into my lap.
How?
By being invited to play with musicians.
Now, how did they invite you?
Pretty much straight up. Let's do it. I was working in the bar and getting up, and during the night.
So they saw you play.
Yeah, saw me play.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there was a couple of bands that were sort of, what would you call them? Affiliated bands. They, like, the drummer would play for the 2 or 3 of the same bands, or at least a bunch of bands would play in the same venue. And I would go to these bars and see the bands, and got to know them and got to see the same people. Musicians are very supportive. Generally, they're very supportive of each other. It can be cliquey, but I think above and beyond that, musicians will support each other. That's sort of how you start. You're only going to get a start from someone going, yeah, get on up. And that happened. So I started to get to know a bunch of musicians, and then once you get up and play Sweet Home Alabama or some AC/DC song or a Creedence Clearwater Revival standard or just a random blues and getting up. So I guess, and I had the advantage of being able to sing in English and it rather than let's say an Argentine who can sing in English but only phonetically, whereas I could speak and sing in proper English. So it went from there, and then I guess that's where I got more confidence, more experience, and certainly having a more professional attitude towards the music that I was playing, including writing songs.
And what do you think the difference is between your attitude before and the professional attitude that you have? Like, what are those qualities?
Yeah, it's funny because, obviously there's a difference between getting up and just having a go and not caring and not worrying about how you sound or if you forget the lyrics or if you know the songs, and basically a jam band or just playing a gig, by the seat of your pants. But also there's a lot of quality in that by just being able to get up and going, yep, let's get into it. So there's sort of this grey area or this merging period where you can be professional and you can have everything down to a T and very well rehearsed. But if you lose that rawness of playing live, you've got nothing. You need to still be able to play a gig by the seat of your pants. And including to this day, I don't play off a set list usually. I'll choose the songs. Obviously, the band will know the songs, but you read the crowd, you read the night. You might have a set list done up, and it might be too heavy or too for that moment, or not the right song for that moment. So you've got to be very flexible in it, and I think that's what I learned going back to the Midnight Movers and doing random gigs in New York and random gigs in Argentina. It was raw. It was very raw, and I think I'd still like to think that I include that in my gigs these days, where it's just balls to the wall. Let's see what happens, and I'll see you in 3 hours. You say to the guys in the band, I'll see you at the end, and whatever happens, happens. Good gig, bad gig, or otherwise. Hopefully, it's good. Yeah.
I know, every artist has their own style, but I wanted to hear from you. How did your style develop? Like, what's that process like over the years? And what kind of an artist do you feel that you actually are? Because from hearing you, it sounds like you're very intuitive. You like the showmanship.
Yeah, definitely. It's
you
all
like
about
the emotionality, that rawness, that grittiness, just, fucking riding the wave almost, right?
Yeah. I think Australian pub rock has that ingredient where, you go back to Bon Scott and things like, and guys of that caliber, certainly Barnesy and going back even before then. Too many artists to mention. The style comes from that. It's almost improvised. You know what you're going to do. You know how it's going to be, but you don't know. You don't have details. You don't have specifics. So I think that is what I've always strived for. That's why I don't have a set list. I don't want one. Of course there are advantages to have it. You know what you're going to play next, but that doesn't always work. You might jump down a couple of songs and go, let's play that now, and we'll scrap that song because that's not going to work. Or you get someone from off stage to get up and sing or something like that. I mean, we're talking pub gigs here. You can't always do that at every gig. But certainly the style of the entertainment is got to be free and easy and fresh. That's what the crowd wants to see. That's what the crowd wants to hear. They don't want to see a rock and band be too structured. It's rock and roll. It's not supposed to be that good. It's got to be free and easy. And the gig and the band and the music and the entertainment will be better for it. So that's my style. I'm happy to have the band will know what we're doing. There's a guide. We've got a roadmap, but there's detours and shit all along the way, and bring it on, because we're in a Mack truck and we're going. Once you get up on stage, you can't stop and sort yourself out. You try not to. And there's little nuances on stage that a band will know. Musicians doing a great job always sort of know where we are. You can work it out.
Tell me about that feeling when you've got everything set up.
Yeah.
And you hear the crowd like fucking murmuring to themselves, and like, what's that feeling like? And you're about to go on stage and start off and.
Yeah, that murmur. Yeah, I know the murmur you're talking about. Yeah, just that hum. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Usually in one of two places. I'm out the back and just having a last drink before going up on stage. But yeah, it's exciting. I don't think I can describe it. Just getting up and picking up that guitar. Yeah, any entertainer feels king of the world. You think, God, whether they're there for you or whether it's just you're the band on the night and the people are there and that's how it's going to go. You get given the crowd and you're going to try and do the best, and hopefully they're a crowd that is responsive, or they're a crowd that's come to see your band. So often it's a mixture of both. It always is a mixture of band. There's always people in the room that have never heard of you, and there's people that have seen you 10 times. It's an exciting feeling. The nerves, the positive nerves. It's. I think that's exactly the moment that you're after as an entertainer. Even more so, or at least equally so, as walking off stage after the last song, because that's the equivalent just at the other end, 2-3 hours later when you finish your full gig. And but yeah, there's something super exciting. And that murmur starts, that excitement starts that afternoon when you're walking into the place with your guitar and your amp and you got your band. You're all meeting there at 5 o'clock. You don't come on till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. But setting up that night it's part of it. The gig starts as soon as I walk into the venue. Yeah.
You sit there and absorb.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take myself out of it. I'll go and have dinner, or I'll come back home for a couple of hours and chill out or something like that, or if that's possible, or you're out the back just chilling with the band or something. But that heightened awareness that tonight's the gig night. You live for it. I remember going back to the days of playing in Argentina and Rio and in Brazil. You live for that. As soon as you walk off stage, I remember one of the guys in the band said, 1 more week to go. As soon as we walked off stage, he would just say, now I've got a week. I've got to survive a week till we can do that again. That's all he cared about was the weekly Saturday night gig. And that's why you always look for a Thursday night gig or a Tuesday night gig to try and get something else to give you that fix.
Reminds me a lot of the song Sultans of Swing.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, exactly. What is it? Jimmy don't mind if he don't make. Yeah, exactly. That song is definitely about it. About playing. That's all you want to do. Yeah, it's just it's cliched almost, but it's what you live for. When it's what you want, it's all you care about. Yeah.
So here's a question. In amongst all of that, like there's obviously the highs, the rush of going on stage and having the audience in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about the lows. Like, what is the actual struggles that a musician has to go through? Like, it must be difficult trying to, make a coin in amongst your gigs.
Yeah. Often you're playing for beer. I remember playing for pizza and a beer on one particular night, and they didn't know the band. We were a new band, and so this is a couple of years later in another part of Argentina where I'd moved to a different city. Got a new band together called Nick and the Shots. And we had a lot of fun. We were together for 2 years. But yeah, starting out, and it's not a whole lot of fun. You're not making any money. I remember, I think the bass player's family turned up and 2 friends of mine turned up. So there's, and you're charging at the door, and so of course they're going to come in for free. Yeah, there's no glory. There's no glory. But you do it. You play your gig. You treat it like a rehearsal. It is what it is. But to a degree, there's still that element of this is us. It's still Saturday night. You're still playing. You're still playing the songs that you love. It's great if you can almost form a family with the band. You start hanging out with each other. If you're not playing, you're having barbecues back at someone's house, or you're going out to go see other bands, going to meet other bands. And building that sort of aspect of it. But yeah, the low nights, and you can have bad gigs. You can have bad gigs where just nothing goes right in front of people, in front of a crowd, where your sound's terrible, or, I've lost my voice in several gigs, whether it be through laryngitis or overuse of the voice, doing too many gigs, singing with a bad sound system, things like that. So, You try not to think about those too often. They have to happen though. They're an important part of the process to have. When you have a dud gig, it's part of it. And, you suck it up and you accept it, and you try and think, I try and think that the only way is up now. It's like the gig we had to have. You have a shit gig and you go, great, well, that's how we play shit. Let's never do that again. You fix it, you move on. That's how that works.
Do you ever feel like a fraud being up on stage? Even after all the gigs, after all the experience?
Fraud.
Or just an imposter, like the imposter syndrome?
No, it's pretty real. There's no hiding. Personally, often I hide. I have a bad day at work or things going on in my own life. I hide behind the microphone and a guitar, but I think there's escapism in that. When I get up on stage, I can be that guy. But it's not fake. It's real. It's still me. It's still me doing what I love, what I've always loved doing, and what I want to do. There's no faking it. If you fake it or you're not real, people hear that. People see it. It comes out in your music, whether you're playing covers or whatever. If you're passionate about it and it's what you want to do, you're always gonna get there eventually. Not every song, not every set, not every gig, but yeah, you got to be real, and that honesty is certainly what I chase. Yeah.
So quantify that honesty. Do you mean like playing the music that you actually connect to, finding that empathy with the lyrics and the song content?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of that. I mean, not every song you need to get emotionally involved in, but you gotta. There's a reality there. I only play songs that I like. I don't think I've ever played a song that I don't like. Even when I haven't been, I've played in a few bands where I've just been the guitarist and I've not been the front man, so to speak, or front person. I've played in a few soul bands, like 13-piece soul bands, where I've just taken a back seat in the band and just been the guitarist. But that music is always music that I like. I don't think I've ever played a song that I don't like live. So that's real, and certainly in my own bands. I mean, you got to. Why play something you don't like? Because there's so many songs out there that I do like. That there's a whole, if someone wants to get up and play, if someone asks me to request a song, if I know it, it's because I like it. If I don't particularly like the song, or I might like the song but not want to play it or whatever, it's because I just don't. And you find another alternative. There's 1,000 songs to play. There's 100,000 songs to play. You always sort of get by it that way. But yeah, honesty shines through. I think in any art form, you can't fake art. You can't fake art. It doesn't work. I don't know what fake art would be called, but it's certainly not something that you can bring to the table in front of a crowd that is standing there looking at you or listening to you. They want to see you. I want to give them me. I want to give them what I'm doing. I'm not gonna play music that I aren't somehow involved in. So if I'm playing a nice rock gig and with a rock band, then give it 100%. It's always going to work that way. Yeah.
It seems like you have to have a good, strong reason why you're on stage. I want to know for you, in the simplest summation possible, why do you go out there and do your gigs now? What is that? What drives you?
Good question. It's certainly not. The answer certainly isn't. It's what I've always done, or just what I like to do. I think it's much more than that. Why do I gig now? It's a love. It's just a love. It's the thrill. It's the adrenaline. That aspect is certainly there. It's fun. It's what I know. I think that's about it. I don't know if I can sort of elaborate on that. It's just it just is. You know, you ask for a simple answer, and I don't think there's anything like during this time of COVID and lockdown and isolation, things like that. I'm missing playing. It certainly feels like a part of me is gone.
Yeah.
Or at least, to a certain extent. It's what I do, and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I wouldn't want to be sitting around or, going to footy training or something. That's not me.
Yeah.
Playing music is. So yeah.
How are you in between your gigs? How are you scratching that musical itch?
I'm getting together a new band as we speak. So the Cush Ryder band is being formed currently. I was forming it before all this blew up over this summer, but we had to stop that process for obvious reasons. But meanwhile, sitting on the couch over there behind me and working out new songs. Just also recording. I'm in the studio with Boris Markarian here, who I've recorded several songs with now. He's a great producer, great sound engineer, and also with Terry Strudwick. Those two guys have just been, instrumental in getting the Cush Ryder project moving, and I'm indebted to those guys. There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. So it's not just gigs or sitting on the couch playing guitar. There's recording, production, ideas, internet, social media. These days, there's so much more to do than just 6 strings and a microphone. So there's a lot of activity going on behind the scenes. It's almost like I've been busy with music. It doesn't stop. Learning new songs, getting ideas together, meeting musicians. Albeit online, but it's still going. It hasn't stopped me.
Do you play every day?
No, I don't. In fact, to be honest, over this break, there was a long time where I didn't touch a guitar. I sat here in my house, and I was happy. I was happy to do that. I was happy to step away. I didn't prescribe to the notion that I've got to use this time to write new songs every day. And isn't it? I got a life to live, and it was nice to have a break. Even when things aren't normal. Well, we're normal before this downtime. I'd finish a gig on a Saturday night, and sometimes I wouldn't pick up the guitar for a few days, even to a week until the next gig. It's just how it's an energy thing. It's how you feel. I don't wake up in the morning and go, right, I'm a musician, so I'm going to go and play guitar now. I certainly take breaks. You need that light and shade in between, to have creativity. I think it can't be constant. It can't be constant at all. But yeah, certainly, doing live streams. I've done a few live streams. Personally, I'm not very comfortable with sitting on the couch playing guitar. It has its place, but some musicians are out there playing and doing live streams every Friday night, like they're doing gigs, or every day. I can't do that. Give me a crowd, give me a stage, give me a band, and that's where it's at for me. The entertainment, the people aspect.
So as a professional musician, give me a rundown on the things that you do to survive as a professional musician. So obviously you do weddings, you do live gigs, you've also got a day job. Talk to me about how you make everything work financially that way.
Try not to spend. Gigs pay their way. It's also not about the money necessarily. The guitars have been bought and paid for, so it's not like I'm going out every week and buying a new guitar.
I wanted to just mention this as well. So, when you're purchasing a guitar,
Yep.
it obviously appreciates in value as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that way,
Well, some appreciate, some depreciate.
Right.
I don't know. You'll have to speak to an accountant, my accountant,
Yeah.
or not. Listen, there are financial ways of making it. I'm not an expert in that. These days, the music industry is changed. There's a lot of avenues for musicians to make. It is hard. It's not easy. It's not. Gigs alone just don't pay for it. There's a lot of overheads. You got to pay for a PA system. Things break. There's transport, accommodation. You work it out where you can. There's management involved. They take their part. They take their commissions. For me, playing every weekend, it sustains itself, and it pays for itself. So new guitar strings, new pedals, new equipment. It somehow finds a way. Obviously, having a day job, work in construction here in Melbourne, and that obviously helps. But I mean, that's also got to pay for my life, my daily life, everything else. But as far as strictly music, it pays for itself. I stay pretty local in regards to the state of Victoria. I did play up at Tamworth earlier this year. I went up to Tamworth in January to play the festival up there, and that was great. That was a whole lot of fun. But the gigs there, again, they paid. I worked it out with careful planning. You can make it happen. And then some people get struck by lightning, and then they find it. They make their way. But as far as making money, there are ways. You've just got to get out there and gig as much as you can. Certainly networking. Doing solo gigs. I do a lot of solo acoustic gigs, so that's bread and butter. And then band, there's more mouths to feed in a band setup.
Yeah.
So you got to share that around. And then touring as well has its costs, fuel, and accommodation, and food. And if you're on tour for a week and you're only playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, then what are you doing for the other 4 days? You're not earning money. You got to go backwards. So it's very hard anywhere in the world, big, famous, small, and unknown. It's hard to make a dollar.
So the main thing there is that you mainly get it from your weekend pub gigs.
Yep.
And say weddings or other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you try and go for the big fish. Weddings are great. People always will overpay to have their wedding just the way they want it, and I'll try and accommodate that for whatever that will need, or bigger venues. But even in some of the larger festivals, I've played in some festivals, and they don't often pay more. Just because you're playing in front of a bigger crowd doesn't necessarily equate to more money. And then there's going into other avenues. There's government grants and things like that. There's a lot of help these days for the arts. Local councils will pay bands. They have a budget for that sort of stuff, so you can play down at the local council festival and things like that. So there are ways to make money.
How long have you been playing for?
In which
professionally?
Professionally, I don't know, on and off for 10 or 15 years now, depending.
In that time, like forgetting more because guitars, they're an asset.
Yeah.
If you ever needed to sell one, you probably even made money or get it back.
Yeah.
Would you say that you've broken even in profit or in debt over that time?
I know I've got a few bar tabs that I still owe. I think I owe a few bars. Sorry about that. Yeah. I'll be back and I'll pay. I'll pay the debt. I'll pay my bar tab. It's a sliding scale really there.
Because I can tell you.
I'm sort of looking around here, looking at some of the guitars and thinking, gee, have I paid that off yet? Listen, I would like to think that I'm in the black. Sometimes I go, a musician, not only necessarily speaking for myself, but you can go to a gig, do the gig, and they pay you, and you come back home and you go, sweet, I've just made whatever as an artist you can make, and there might be zero cost to the day, because often things are provided. You have your fee. Here in Melbourne, it can be very tough because there's so much talent that it's hard. That's why most of my gigs are out regional. I'm prepared to drive 2-3 hours to a gig, because here in Melbourne there's so much talent, and even though there are still, in my opinion, there still are a lot of venues that will have live music. There's not as many as there used to be, of course, back in the heyday in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even as much as 10 years ago. But there's such a density here of talent that it's hard to, you're up against a lot of people. It could be, you can call up a bar, you can call up, let's say, the Gasometer Hotel or the Espy, and you might get a booking, but it'll be 6 months away. So now what do you do? You sit around and wait. So you've got to fill up your calendar. But I've found that, especially being country rock artist, playing in regional centres, that waiting period is a lot shorter. You can get something going. You can get a string of towns together, head off for a week or two, and put a few gigs together, and it will pay for itself. I'm not saying it'll necessarily be lucrative, but you may not lose money.
So let me ask you this, because this is something I find very common with my art. Being an actor, being a filmmaker, I'll get asked by people, "Oh, what have you been in?" I've got like a 10-second moment on Wentworth that's the highlight of my career, right? And it can be a bit tough to in the beginning. It can be a bit tough to your identity as an artist to have a day job. So my question to you is, now in your life right now, how do you view your identity having a career in construction with your work? Do you ever feel like it kind of makes you less of a musician, or have you felt like you've gotten over that? Or
interesting question.
And then how do your colleagues at these construction sites, view you as a musician?
Yeah. It's a funny thing. I work with a really tight bunch of guys. We're all mates. They support me. In fact, I sometimes think that they think I'm a musician, whereas I think that I'm a construction guy. I guess everyone, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people have a second gig or something. It's a funny mix. But fortunately, between my two careers, they can intertwine pretty easily. Certainly perceived by some of my mates. I mean, it's a lot of people, obviously the grand majority don't even know that I do gigs on weekends. Sometimes I go and play a gig, and out of the crowd will come, someone will pop their head up with a hand up and they say, "I worked with you last week on a building site in the city." So you get a lot of that, obviously. That's a lot of fun when that happens. But as for a musician, the highlights are the highlights. You try and play the biggest gigs you can. I've played a few festivals, not so much here in Australia, but certainly overseas. That was where with a band I had, the Shots, Nick and the Shots, and we played a whole bunch of festivals. And I was only doing music there, so that was rock and roll. That was just playing gigs every weekend, either at bars, and then you'd get these sort of spasmodic festivals coming up every now and again. That was a lot of fun. But here back in Australia, it's kind of 50-50. It really is. I'd like it to be more music, but at the moment things have changed. Obviously things have stopped, so it's completely, pretty much for every artist in the world right now, certainly here in Australia while we're still in lockdown, there ain't nothing going on. So everyone's going back to what they used to be, or what they really are. Yeah.
And in terms of, let's take it back maybe about a year now.
Yep.
From today.
Yep.
How do you find gigs? How do you find work? How do you find paid opportunities as a musician?
Yeah.
How does that work for you?
I do it all myself, so I don't have a representative as such anymore, because I don't feel there's a need. But by saying that, it's often not a cold call. The way it works is one gig leads to another. I kind of have this 1-to-1 ratio. Maybe it's a bit of a fantasy sometimes, but one gig will always lead to another. Someone will always come up out of the crowd and say, can you play at my 40th? Can you play at my pub? Can you guys play at this festival? Or can you guys come back in a month to this venue? So it ticks along quite well. Most pubs are very supportive of the bands that they like. I've been lucky with a few of the pubs that I play here in Victoria, the Broadford Hotel, a couple of pubs up in Kilmore, Seymour, and here in Melbourne, where they're becoming regular gigs. They may not play necessarily every month, but I can fill up a calendar over, say, the next 6 months and get gigs going. I think mostly that is crowd support. Just people want to come up. Sometimes a person will speak to the publican and say, "Get these guys back." Hopefully that's how it works. You don't want to have never get them back again. I'm sure that's happened once or twice, or 3 times. But so basically one gig will perpetuate itself into another. Someone will want any band at their wedding if they like a particular band. So one rolls over into another, hopefully more.
Do you get a lot of inquiries to your website?
Yeah, absolutely. That does happen. Obviously there's online media, internet, social media these days is a very powerful tool.
Are you reliant on that? Do you get a lot of?
I wouldn't say reliant. It's a tool. I wouldn't say I'm dependent of it. If I was not to have social, that is there to maintain a presence. I think where the push comes from is, believe it or not, playing gigs, getting up, playing live. That's where the impact is. If you can play in a pub with a whole bunch of people, I'd always try and get a second gig. It's not that I'm trying to get a second gig. It just, hopefully it happens. It is what it is. You get up there and you play and you hope that everyone likes it, and one person will come up and get you something. Social media is certainly a tool. Even more so every year, it's just becoming more and more important. But it certainly doesn't act on its own. For me personally, that might be different with other artists, other genres, other forms. I also can't be sitting at my computer on my phone all day just looking for gigs. It's all about it's all about just getting out there, flesh and blood. Yeah.
So in terms of, I know for musicians, what is important is building up a support base, because as an actor, unless you've got a household name, I'm an independent actor.
Yep.
I'm starting out. I'm relatively young in my career. That's not how I get gigs. That's not how I make money. That's not how it's just industry people who know me, directors that I've worked with. I'm going to sell myself, getting auditions, etc.
Yeah.
But as a musician, I'd imagine that you still, you start to develop a fandom, even if it's a local support.
Yeah.
You still have that. So what kind of a support base do you have? What does it consist of? How do you keep in contact with them?
Great question. All sorts, including from family, right through to unknowns. Just last week, a lady requested, I was doing a live stream, and a lady requested I play a song that I wrote and recorded last year. And somehow she had been passed on a link to one of my songs off Spotify or somewhere, or through iTunes or wherever, and she liked it, and she had gotten onto the fan base. An absolute purely organic suggestion from a friend of a friend that had ended up in her, and
right.
And I was touched. I was blown away. I ended up asking for address and sending a postal address and sending off a CD to her, because I was touched. I was like, wow, it's like 3 degrees of separation. She'd never been to a gig, but yet she had somehow found my music and had even gotten online to request a song. So that was so it can happen sort of from a distant point of view in that way, or through various degrees of separation. Most of that sort of stuff is generated from gigs. Who are they? all sorts of people, music lovers. Essentially, that's what you go for. People who just love music, and it's amazing because at a gig, often someone will come up and go, "Oh, love the gig. That was a great gig," and that's awesome. It's great when someone comes up and it's one-on-one and you get that direct feedback. But a lot of the people, most of the time, will walk away and you don't know if they've liked it or not, and sometimes you get given nothing. Sometimes you don't even get anyone coming up at the end of the night. People just walk off and you sort of wonder where you stand. Did they like it? Did they not? What do they think? But from out of those people that just walk away, I might get an email a month later or 6 months later saying, "I saw you play 6 months ago. It was really good. Can you come and play at a party or whatever?" So it happens in very different ways, very surprising ways that you never know where it's going to come from. Hopefully it's positive. Usually, I guess you only ever hear the positive, and the negatives sort of, they are what they are. You hope that there's not too many of them. But certainly, I think gigs would be the main thing. Again, when I was up at Tamworth, I was playing on the street. I was busking on the street. And I had my gear set up there and I was playing, and there was a lady who was working out of the pharmacy about 5 doors down. And she had stuck her head out and she had heard me playing down the street. And she got online and she wrote to me and she said, "I really loved your music. That was a great set." And I was like, were you there? And she's like, "No, I work 5 doors down. I just heard you." And so, and that's great when that happens. It's a lot of fun when you get to meet these people who you never meet. You just have this connection through music, and they like it, and you hope they do, and you hope it sort of keeps going that way. Yeah.
What I was going to ask was, talk to me about showmanship. So, I know one of my favorite guitarist is Yngwie Malmsteen, if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. He's got crazy hair.
Yeah, exactly.
He comes out, this guitar just descends from the top of the stage and comes down, and he grabs it, plays with his tongue.
Yeah.
He fucking whips it around and all that. Yeah. And then when we went to the commercial hotel in South Morang, and we saw Diesel, Johnny Diesel.
Yeah, exactly.
He comes out and he's got that big stainless steel guitar. Twirls it around and that light hits it, and you just know this guy's a rock star.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. How do you inject that showmanship? What do you remember from the great showmans that you have seen?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is not how good you are; it's how good you look, isn't it? I think sometimes like that. That's isn't that talent? I think I was told once by Singer that if you try and make the crowd your friend at a personal level, one-on-one, rather than just making it, "G'day guys, how you going? You don't know me." So I think that's a fundamental sort of standard right there. Showmanship. Get out there and enjoy it. Be happy. If you love what you're doing, and if you're looking like you're loving what you're doing, I think the crowd's gonna bite into that. They can't not. Wow. Yeah. Showmanship. It's not something that you can learn either. I think When I was before I started playing guitar, I hadn't even had my guitar, my very first guitar. So I would have been 12, 13 years old. And I had that image. I wanted to be that front man. So I think it's something that you not necessarily got or born with or anything like that, but it's something that you want to do. You just are that show off. A bit of show off. You can't be shy. You've got to be confident. Confidence obviously has a thing. Own it, know it, feel it, and express it, and get it out there. And then when you give off that energy, it bounces back. But it doesn't only bounce back; it amplifies and it intensifies until you're thinking, "Wow, this is a lot of fun." Doesn't matter if you're good. Doesn't matter if you can't sing. I've done plenty of gigs where I can't sing, even to this day. I'm no Pavarotti. It's just about giving people that good time. That's what they want. That's what they're there for. It's what they've paid for. It's almost their illusion of the artist. But really everyone's just got to go home and do a load of washing and, clean the kitchen and take the kids to school like everyone else. So it's not that it's an illusion. It's still very real. But as for being a showman and a front man of a band, certainly being confident, leading the band is very much part of it. Leading the gig, if not the musicians themselves, because sometimes a band, the leader of the band isn't the person out front. It might be one of the other musicians on stage as a musical director. But certainly having that confidence, buying into that performance, you got to own it. You know, name your greatest artist ever.
Freddie Mercury.
I was about to say.
Well, he's got this classic clip. I don't know if it's at Wembley, but it's a massive crowd. He's doing like a call and response.
That's right. The Deo. Yeah, exactly.
And he's playing with it. He's having fun. He's dressed up, and there's this great bit in the beginning of it where he's got like a cup of water and he just splashes this woman in the front row. Yeah, and that could be like a pretty intense, rude thing to do, right?
That's right.
But then the camera looks at her and she's like just screaming in ecstasy. She's all
the greatest cup of water she's ever had. Yeah, exactly.
And then the audience are responding to it. They're bouncing off that. They're responding back to him, and then he's telling them to fuck off and that, and it's all playful, but they love it.
That's right. I guess arrogance, you got to watch that arrogance. And, I think Axl Rose, for example, has had many a horrible gig where the crowd is he's, this great rock singer, Guns N' Roses, and he's had his time, but there's been stories of many, for example, Axl Rose, but there are many more, where they've failed because they've displayed arrogance and
too indulgent, self-indulgent.
That's right, and a crowd will respond to that just as quickly as someone else. Now, you also don't need to have the rock star gene. There are many artists out there that get up and perform through whatever genre of art, and they're quite humble. But yet they still own that presence. They are still the greatest act that person has ever seen to date. But it's all about that confidence. It's confidence is certainly complete. It's almost the polar opposite of arrogance, even though it's like they're evil cousins. And you don't want to find that balance. There is no balance. You want to stay away from stage arrogance. So I think it's about ownership of what you can do. Believe in yourself. Sometimes I get up there and I go, man, I think I don't want to play. I've gone to many a gig where I don't feel like playing that night, but something happens. You get up, that adrenaline does kick in,
and you sort of confront that feeling.
Absolutely. You face it, and hopefully it works out to be a great gig anyway. You overcome it. Something goes right, and you go, wow, okay, now I'm comfortable. But showmanship is not necessarily about leadership. I don't think it's got anything to do with leadership as much as it's got to do with ownership of your own craft, your own performance. Believe in yourself, and get out there and have fun. But more than have fun, just push it. Just push it out of you. That first note, that first guitar chord is, when I get up there and starting a gig, there's no better feeling than just hearing that guitar rock up, or that first drum beat, walking up on a stage. It's like, wow. And I don't care how small the venue is. It's the same. Big or small gigs, it's the same.
One memory I have was when I directed and filmed Ride Me's video clip, right?
Yeah, great day. A great couple of days. Yeah.
We're at the Whittlesea Rodeo.
Yeah, I remember.
You got the tow truck.
Yeah.
Playing on the black vest.
Yeah.
You got the cap.
Yeah.
The jeans.
Yeah.
You got the guitar. You got an amp. You got your band on the back of a tow truck.
Yeah.
As a rodeo's happening a couple of 100 meters away.
Yeah.
You got a crowd of you would have had at least 200 by the end of the
Yeah,
night,
it was a great
right?
day. It was a great crowd.
And I remember filming you, and I'm like, hey, you just you're stomping on the guitar, and you're and that feeling, and I looked at you, and I looked at the response of the crowd. I'm like, that's the rock star quality. It's that attitude, it's that charisma. You know what you are. You know how to play the audience. You know how to get them to respond to you. And it's just that feeling. Yeah,
and that's all it is. It's a feeling, and a lot of things at that moment can go very wrong.
Yeah.
You can fall off stage. The power. In fact, even at that gig, I think the power went out.
Yes.
Someone pulled out a lead from out the back, and there's chaos. And the show must go on, sort of thing applies there. but yeah, it's a great energy. You hope it all goes well. There's no feeling. I don't know. I guess it's indescribable. Anyone can do it. It's not a gift, or it's barely a skill. It just happens. And although there are people that just have that freak quality and just can walk out on stage and blow 50,000 people away at 200,000 people at Glastonbury Festival or something like that away, namely Freddie Mercury and people of that caliber of talent. But playing a small regional local radio, which was a lot of fun. It was a big crowd that day. It was a great day. Setting up ended up being a really good gig. And playing to that crowd was fantastic. Yeah, it was something that sort of started to really get the ball going with the Cush Ryder project. We filmed the video clip that day. It was a great gig, and the atmosphere of the rodeo, kind of like it felt like half the job was already done with that rodeo already going. I was just in my element, and I think when that happens, it kind of just moves along on itself. Once that train starts rolling, it ain't going to stop until we power down and put the guitars away. Yeah, I try to avoid doing gigs where it may not just work, i.e. weddings. Sometimes weddings can go, if weddings are too rigid and there's not enough space for me personally to get out and do what I want to do, with all respect to the party of the wedding and everything like that. But, the Cush Ryder band it's rock. We want to, break those chains, break those shackles, and let me do what I want to do. It's going to work. I'll make it work. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's the attitude you need.
Yeah, that's it.
We're going to wrap it up now. So
Sure.
I want to just ask you a couple of rapid fire questions.
Mm-hmm.
You just answer in the simplest, shortest answer possible.
Yeah, sure. Shoot.
Favorite musicians?
Cold Chisel, Robert Johnson, Ray Charles, and there's so many.
One more.
Big influence. It'd be Diesel, Mark Lizotte. Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Absolute great Australian artists. Both Jimmy Barnes, Ian Moss, Don Walker, a great songwriter from the Cold Chisel side. Ray Charles, classic musician, just fantastic across all genres, from soul, gospel, blues, and rock. Who else did I mention there? Diesel, of course, very important influence. Probably one of the biggest, certainly when I was younger. Yeah.
And all the guitars you own, which one would you be buried with?
Wow. The Fender Stratocaster there behind me. I bought that in New York just after September 11, probably the week after September 11 or 2 weeks after. Fender Strat. Yeah.
Worst gig?
Worst gig. Well, geez. Worst gig.
Where was it and what happened in one sentence?
Argentina, at a rugby club, free alcohol. Yeah.
Favorite song you're proud of that you wrote?
Favorite song that I'm proud of that I wrote? Ride Me. Yeah, Ride Me. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. A lot of people came together to help me with that. And it was a much bigger production. The video clip yourself did a wonderful job on it's a really great, entertaining video clip. And it's probably had the most traction so far. Yeah.
Favorite gig that you've ever seen from another musician?
Favorite gig? AC/DC.
Where?
Etihad Stadium, Melbourne, 2004 or 5 years ago now. December the 6th it was. It's just AC/DC. That was just crazy.
Daka.
Yeah, I had people on my shoulders, then I was on their shoulders, and it's AC/DC. You just, so that would be up there, yeah.
Most famous musician you've played with?
Not many I've played with. Famous.
Steve Morgan?
Yeah, well, Steve Morgan, bass player from Ice House, he played bass on Ride Me. So yeah, definitely there's one. There were unknown musicians, like musicians that wouldn't be known necessarily to the Australian public. Alejandro Buda was my drummer in Argentina. He's had a very successful career. He was fantastic drummer over there with my band Nick and the Shots. So he was great. He had a lot of great cred. Yeah, great cred. Yeah.
Any last comments, shout outs, statements?
Yeah, to all the musicians, I think a key thing in all of this journey, the secret to anything, it's about other people. It's what other people have given me up on stage, namely musicians and people who work behind the scenes. I think they're almost the unseen heroes. I have become a better musician because of playing with other people. I think that's a takeaway that I've learnt from playing. Whether it be just some guy that I've played with on a Sunday afternoon on the roof of a backpackers hostel in Brazil. Those people make it. I call them brothers of music. And they're only for a short periods of time that I might be in a band with them, or an afternoon, or a quick little gig. But those people have made it special, and I've always put down the guitar and walked away better for it. Yeah.
Cush, you're a good man. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thanks, Ads. Good on you, man. Love your work.
Love yours.
Thank you.
And cut.